Welcome to the first episode of the Dayton Vistas podcast. We are just a few weeks into the new year, so today I wanted to reflect on 5 projects I'm excited about for 2026, which span redevelopment, historic preservation, and new infill construction. I'll give a rundown on their 2025 progress, a little history, as always, as well as what they mean for Dayton and what to expect in 2026. So this segment is going out on my new podcast feed as well as on YouTube with images of the sites, and I'll make sure I do describe everything for the audio only audience. So at number 1, we're going to start downtown with a very high profile redevelopment, the Dayton Arcade. So 2025 saw some major steps forward, and there's more to come this year too. So last summer, the major construction of the second phase of the project was completed, and that was the North Arcade on the 3rd Street side, where a new hotel opened. And there were also some new businesses that opened on the other sides of the complex too. Now, to give just a quick background, the arcade's first phase involves 7 different buildings on the south half of the block, centered on 4th, Main, and Ludlow Streets, and that mostly opened in 2021. So phase 1 had 110 new apartments, most of them affordable units, and the Hub, which is a collaboration between the University of Dayton and the Entrepreneurs Center, and that added classrooms, private offices, and co-working spaces. And then the central rotunda space has become a venue for weddings and other special events, as well as public market days with local vendors, including the popular Holly Days Festival. So that was the first phase. And then the second phase on the 3rd Street side brought in the 93-room Hilton Garden Inn Hotel, which also has a second floor bar and restaurant, which is open to the public, called the Garden Grill. The walkway on the ground floor of the 3rd Street building, which is the actual arcade that gives the complex its name, has been turned back into small retail storefronts, and tenants, which include Smales Pretzels, Luke's Custom Cakes, Tiffany's on 3rd, and more, are gearing to open up in spring 2026. So I'm really excited for this. Mostly because retail was historically always a big part of the arcade, and when these stores open, the concourse will have open hours and will once again allow you to walk inside across the whole block from 4th to 3rd Streets, as the arcade has always been intended to be. So in addition to this work, there were also some changes in the ground floor spaces in the South Arcade in 2025. And I think this is important because some people don't really know what businesses are actually open to the public and where they're located around the arcade block. Some of these even give you a great view into the rotunda and some other spaces that are sometimes assumed to be inaccessible. So on 4th Street, Gather by Ghostlight unfortunately closed, but it was replaced by Lucho, which serves up coffee as well as tacos, burritos, bowls, and more. And then the Table 33 restaurant is located at the corner of 4th and Ludlow in the space that was previously the Italian restaurant Est Est Est. And Table 33 moved from its previous location at 2nd and Wilkinson Streets downtown, and it opened here right at the end of 2024. In December 2025, it also opened the dessert room right next to the main dining room, and that offers elevated desserts and after dinner cocktails. So both Lucho and Table 33 have patio spaces in the back, which puts you right out next to the central rotunda. And then you have the Garden Grill I already mentioned, which is inside the hotel on the 3rd Street side. That's on the 2nd floor and gives you a great view over the retail walkway on one side and then over Courthouse Square on the other. And for some other arcade businesses that have already been open, there is the Contemporary and its free art gallery on 4th Street, and then also the 6888 Kitchen Incubator on Ludlow Street. So the 6888 is really interesting. It's a shared commercial kitchen and business incubator, and it aims to help local food entrepreneurs grow and scale their operations. So in 2026, they're fundraising for some much needed office and storage space, which will hopefully allow them to serve more entrepreneurs who they're currently having to turn away. In the meantime, you can order food from multiple restaurants, either at the 6888 in person or through their website. And a final arcade business to mention that opened in 2025 is Beyond Grocery on the Main Street side inside the hub. So previously the home of Startup Grounds, this is now a new concept in the space. It's a cashless grocery store that has coffee, variety of food items, and even some health and personal care goods, which I think is especially needed now that the downtown CVS on Courthouse Square has closed. So overall, I've seen people comment that the arcade is private and lament that they can't see it except when there's a public event. But as we just covered, there are a wide variety of places you could go to right now. And I'll make sure to include their details in the show notes too. And I'd also just stress the fact that the hub and all the companies it serves, the private offices, plus all the different types of events that are held in the rotunda are 100% crucial to making the project sustainable overall. So if the arcade was just a food court, like many people remember it from the 80s, plus some retail thrown in, I think there's really no chance that it would make it in this day and age. So that's another thing I love about this redevelopment project is that it takes the arcade back to its original vision dating back to 1904, which was always a mixed-use downtown anchor with people living, working, and shopping there. So I'll cover the arcade more in future episodes, but let's move on for now. So at number 2, we have another big downtown development, and we don't have to travel far to get to it. With the arcade's major construction completed, momentum is shifting across Main Street to another huge structure that's been sitting vacant for years, and that's the Center City building. Its redevelopment is coming together, and that'll be led by Model Group, who's been working on the arcade with its lead developer, Cross Street Partners. This is a building I've written a lot about. It's recently been rebranded as the Main Line, but its original name was the United Brethren Building for the United Brethren Publishing House, which was a major early publisher of religious and devotional books and periodicals. I've also written about how the Center City is actually a complex of multiple buildings, at least 4 of them, which were constructed at different times, somewhat like its neighbor across Main Street, the Arcade. Sources say it was one of the tallest reinforced concrete office buildings in the world at the time of its completion, and it's the only example in Dayton of the Chicago commercial architectural style. It was Dayton's tallest building from 1904 to 1931 when the now Liberty Tower was built. But it wasn't always what we see today. So the United Brethren Publishing Company was at this same corner since the 1850s, first in a much smaller building. Then they had a lot of success and aimed to build an office tower that could house additional tenants, and the profits would go to retired ministers and their families. And that resulted in a tall but skinny office tower at the corner, completed in 1904, which is the portion of the current building on the south side or closest to 4th Street. At the same time as that, they renovated 2 earlier manufacturing buildings directly to the east on 4th Street. And then in 1909, they built a new manufacturing extension on the Market Street side, today the bus hub. In the early 20s, a large addition to the north and the classic 5-story tower were added to the main structure. So the first and second floors were altered many times over the years by some different commercial tenants. In 1984, the commercial facade was refaced with concrete stucco, and it was tinted in some neutral shades, aiming to blend with the upper stories. But that gives it the kind of interesting look you see looking at the back on Main Street. The building was also known for retail, and it was once the home of the Adler and Childs department store. And then the top floor also had a penthouse apartment that the building owners themselves lived in the 1970s, which I've always thought is really fascinating because that was like the height of people moving out to the suburbs. So it's been completely vacant since around 2012, and it has changed hands several times since then. Redevelopments have been proposed. It's won $5 million in state historic tax credits more than once, but they had to be given back when the rest of the financing couldn't be assembled. And all that has changed, though, more recently when the Arcade development partners aimed to purchase it. So one article shared that Model Group has been working on the current plan for 4 years, and that plan is for 217 apartments, which includes a mix of types of apartments, so affordable senior units, workforce housing, and some market rate apartments, plus nearly 10,000 square feet of first floor commercial space. It has earned $6 million dollars from the city to the Montgomery County Land Bank to help with the significant needed remediation as well as pre-development and other costs. And then a little bit more under the radar is the role of a parking garage attached to the east side, extending out to Jefferson Street. That had previously been a barrier to redevelopment because it wasn't able to be acquired, but the RTA stepped up to partner with Model to restore the Center City building by working with them on acquisition and renovation of this, which was called the Air City Garage. And they are using $10 million dollars that the RTA already had set aside for a parking garage project. So I've been talking about this building for years, and it's really exciting to walk by it today and see some actual real activity underway. That is some of that abatement work. And then the full financial closing is expected to come this spring. So this is another project I'll continue to cover as it progresses. Another big downtown project from 2025 was the Deneau Tower, which is the large building right across 4th from the South Arcade, located at the corner of 4th and Ludlow. It had been mostly empty since former anchor tenant Premier Health moved its 700 employees out way back in 2012, but it was recently converted from an office building into apartments, which opened in spring 2025. And then a second phase of activation is also hopefully soon to come. I think this is a really cool adaptive reuse project, which was done by Windsor Companies, who also did the fire blocks. At 22 stories, this building is a major fixture in Dayton's skyline. Originally called the Grant-Deneau Tower, it was built in 1969, and because of that era, it's not often admired in quite the same way as the more ornate earlier office buildings that are in classical or Art Deco styles. But I think this building holds a special significance, and it was during the suburban exodus happening then in the mid 20th century. So, this was the first modern high rise built in downtown Dayton, and it was an investment that showed resilience at a time when the region was rapidly developing outward and the downtown future was uncertain. So in his book, Hidden History of Dayton, Ohio, Tony Kroger called the building a pioneering effort to revitalize downtown Dayton and compete regionally. And it did get somewhat overshadowed because construction began on the much taller Winters Bank, which was then Kettering and now the Stratacash Tower the following year, and then the Mead, later KeyBank Tower, a few years after that. But I think this project did a lot to make those projects even possible in the first place. And there are also some interesting features to its design, too. It's been described as having a clean, modern look while exhibiting a dash of romanticism, leading to what is considered a Miesian or New Formalist design. It was even added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2016 before the larger downtown district was nominated, which is definitely a rarity given its age. The Dano is also significant for one particular element, its glass. So originally, a flaw in the design was the fact that the monolithic glazed building's heating and cooling costs were so high that no one could afford to work there. So that was even stated as a reason that Premier Health left the building. And because of this, Windsor is utilizing vacuum insulating glass made by Vacuum Glass LLC for the current redevelopment in what is the largest VIG retrofit in North America. So this technology is apparently 10 times more effective at preventing heat loss than single pane window glass, and the building includes around 2,400 of these panels in about 18 different sizes, including the really cool arched windows located on the 22nd floor. So the Dano now features 147 apartments, which are on floors 7 to 22, and the top floor consists of 6 different penthouse units, which have incredible city views. And then for the other floors, there are 2 other things still to come. There's a restaurant space on the ground floor that's still being built out, and then recently it was announced that the city of Dayton is giving a development grant to help create new office space on the remaining lower floors. So that project will provide some much needed offices, and they'll be aimed at entrepreneurs and small business owners at the hub at the arcade who want to expand. So Windsor's working with the city and the Entrepreneurs Center, and Dayton City Manager Shelley Dickstein said of the hub businesses that as they grow and graduate out of the hub, they need spaces affordable. They need space that is affordable, and many of them want to stay in downtown, and we want to keep them in downtown. So I think the office component here is important because downtown Dayton was really affected by the pandemic and the resulting remote and hybrid work patterns, which means less foot traffic. And I think this could help bring some of that back in a really key area right next to the arcade with everything we just saw. So from there, I'm going to shift gears. So an important discussion I see often is that of downtown Dayton versus its neighborhoods in terms of the attention and investment dollars they're getting. So I'm going to cover a couple of projects going on in two historic neighborhoods. So we'll start in Wolf Creek, which is just west of the Great Miami. So in September 2025, I went on a new housing walking tour, which was hosted by the city, and it was focused on this area where a variety of new housing options are being built. So Wolf Creek is the area north of West 3rd, and Wright-Dunbar is directly to its south. And Wolf Creek has historically suffered from disinvestment, and a very large share of its housing stock was recently found by a housing survey to be in a dilapidated state. So the tour showed off four new market rate homes, which are being built by County Corp, as well as one home by GF Bailey. And those are in the area around 1st, 2nd, and Williams Streets. The new housing is being designed to blend in and complement the historic aesthetic of the neighborhood. And the GF Bailey home will also have an accessory dwelling unit behind it. And that is a smaller independent unit on the same lot, which is sold along with the main home. And ADUs have been touted both in Dayton and nationwide as a potential solution to some of the housing affordability crisis happening. And they have the potential for a property owner to rent out the extra unit to help offset the cost of their mortgage or to house some other family members nearby. So they're often called granny flats or in-law suites. And some advocates have given them a name a little less bureaucratic than ADUs, referring to them as backyard cottages. And when I went on this walk, the guides shared that neighbors have been highly supportive of this new housing, which is really intended to help stabilize the neighborhood, where hundreds of homes fell vacant during the Great Recession and mortgage crisis, and a large number of them were demolished around 2014 as nuisance structures through the city's neighborhood improvement program. And these projects are providing infill on those many lots that have been sitting vacant ever since. And even more housing options may be joining them soon. So I found a city press release that shared County Corp is also planning to build 27 new rental homes on 1st, 2nd, and North Broadway. And then there's a townhome project by the Montgomery County Land Reutilization Corp, which is targeting the stretch of Broadway between 1st and 2nd. And that's right next to Edison Elementary School. And the new housing there has a goal of making the Broadway corridor safer for children attending the school. In addition to the new residences, a project is underway to redesign the Wolf Creek levees, which do protect the neighborhood from potential flooding, but articles have said have also created a physical and visual barrier to the waterway. So this project is about reconnecting West Dayton with its water, and once complete, the corridor will hopefully feel more open, welcoming, and safe. So the housing tour also took a look inside some new townhomes just north on West 3rd Street itself, called the Towns at Wright-Dunbar, which broke ground a little over a year ago and are continuing to be built. So this Charles Sims development will include four total buildings, two on West 3rd and two behind it, and it'll be 26 total units. And this has also been called an important investment for an area that suffered through decades of disinvestment and neglect. The business owner right next door to the area, Amos Jeffries of State Farm Insurance, said in a news interview that seeing the investment in the area restores some faith for people living and working there. So he said, quote, "They did feel like they were being neglected and had a lot of doubts because they saw things happening in other communities. Now they finally see it going on here." And I think another notable factor about the development is the design of the three-story brick townhome buildings, which really fit in seamlessly with their 19th century neighbors. And that's due to the fact that this part is located in the actual historic district, which requires approval from the Landmarks Commission. But I think it's important because I see a lot of people criticizing the generic or the cheap-looking character of the new housing developments we're getting both at Dayton and nationwide. And I think projects like this help demonstrate that a more context sensitive, place based design is possible and can still be economically feasible. So this particular site includes the location where the Gem City Ice Cream Building stood until it was demolished in 2022. And that was sometimes reported as the location of the Wright brothers' first bike shop. And I'll resist going too far down that rabbit hole right now, but I do believe nothing occupied by the Wrights actually remained. You can watch my Wright brothers YouTube video if you're interested in that. But to get back to the point, the first townhome building does give a nod to the demolished industrial structure, and it features Gem City Ice Cream Company signs on the facade. So this new housing is not only helping to stabilize the residential area, but also to support the small businesses that have been moving into the Wright-Dunbar commercial area on West 3rd Street. So 5 new small businesses opened there just in 2025, joining some long-standing ones and some newer anchors like the West Social Tap and Table Food Hall at the corner of 3rd and Williams, which opened in 2022. The new businesses include Morgan's Restaurant, the Wright Dunbar Cigar Shop and Lounge, and even more commercial buildings are in the process of being rehabbed for another restaurant, a tea and wine bar, and a deli. And these join several existing service businesses, including the State Farm office I already mentioned, Chase Bank and Wright Pat Credit Union branches, a Pri-Med Physicians family practice, which has the Zeke's Pharmacy right next door. So I think it's interesting how we basically have just 2 intact historic neighborhood commercial districts left in Dayton. So there's 3rd Street here and then 5th Street in the Oregon District. And the Oregon District has traditionally been more of an entertainment and maybe quirky retail district catering to people from all over the region. But this district on West 3rd has a lot more in the way of everyday services for actual residents of the area. So I think it's important that we aren't talking about bringing in some new flashy thing that isn't going to cater to or help existing residents, but instead, I think it's about helping restore a basic level of services to neighborhoods that lost them decades ago. And hopefully, it can help make them more livable and self sufficient. So the new housing here is all a very quick walk from all of these businesses, and that plays a big role in building up a customer base so they can continue to thrive too. Now, in conversations like that, there are, of course, complex social issues to grapple with too. So I know there can be affordability and anti-displacement and related concerns. So my own perspective primarily comes from my work documenting what's been lost in our neighborhoods and advocating for our vanishing history and built environment. But this is definitely one area I'm interested to see what 2026 brings. From there, we'll move over to Northwest Dayton and another historic neighborhood corridor, Salem Ave, with a project that's been on the table for a few years now and recently took a new step forward. That's Longfellow School, a striking late Victorian style structure which was built in 1882 with later additions. It was originally known as the 11th District School before being renamed Longfellow in 1904. For many decades, it served the children of Dayton View and then later as an alternative school known as Longfellow Academy, but structural problems, including roof leaks and falling bricks, led to its closure for the 2017-18 school year. At that time, the Dayton Daily News reported that its leaky roof had gone unfixed for 14 years, but it was soon identified as a target for potential housing redevelopment, and in early 2020, it was purchased by G.F. Bailey, who we mentioned with the Wolf Creek housing. By 2022, the project was being led by United Church Homes, along with Wayland Ventures, who did multiple projects just east of the Oregon District. And in 2022, the project was awarded around $3 million in state historic tax credits, but those were rescinded in 2024 after the project failed to hit deadlines relating to its construction timeline. But in December 2025, the project was given a new award from the state, and this time for even more, $4.3 million in historic tax credits. And the plan is to create 54 senior apartments in the historic school complex, plus a new building that would contain 72 more apartments. And then it would also rehab common areas, including the school's gym and auditorium, and turn them into amenities for tenants and the community. And an earlier report also said that original features of the school will be incorporated into the residential reuse, such as pressed metal ceilings, terrazzo floors, and broad hallways. So the project is estimated to total $39 million, but hopefully this new award can give it the momentum it needs. So I think this is another project in a key location. So Salem Ave is a really important Dayton thoroughfare, and it declined over the later decades of the 20th century due to the familiar story of suburban flight, disinvestment in the surrounding neighborhoods, and efforts to bring back housing, retail, restaurants, and other amenities to the street were formalized in 2018 with the formation of the Salem Ave Peace Corridor Initiative. And there have been some positive developments around the area. So just across of Salem from the Longfellow site is the Gem City Market Co-op grocery store, which has been open since 2021 and is really carving out a crucial niche in the community, which was previously a food desert. And a road construction project also helped convert Lower Salem Ave from a far too wide and dangerous road into a safer experience for those traversing it from the surrounding streets by foot or bike. And like future residents of the Longfellow School block, will hopefully be able to do in just a couple of years. So those are the five things I wanted to talk about today. I think they give us a mix of downtown and neighborhoods and some major and smaller scale projects. And there's obviously a lot of other things to watch for in 2026. So I'll be back again soon to cover more. So I'll talk to you then. In the meantime, you can follow my writing on DaytonVistas.com and go sign up for my newsletter at DaytonVistas.com/newsletter to stay up on my new articles, videos, and live events like presentations and walking tours.